It's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, episode 730, and I'm Dr. Neil Malik. Hey there, happy Friday, and welcome to another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, where I answer your health questions related to fitness, diet and nutrition, and lots more. You send in the questions, and I answer them for you. I want this to be a place where you can learn about the truth. There are so many myths about nutrition and exercise and stress management. When you listen to this show, I want you to feel like you're hearing something that's not just another fad. So I base a lot of what I say on research. Just the other day when I was teaching one of my classes, my student said, "Dr. Neil, what's your opinion on this?" And I responded, well, it's not my job to give you my opinion. We have to look at what the data say. Now, they weren't thrilled that I gave them that response. They said, can you just not be a teacher for a second? Just tell us your opinion. But that doesn't do you any service. All right, let's hear the truth as we get to today's question and as we optimize your life.
Hello, Dr. Neil. My name is Marius. I live in Romania. If you could only choose 5 organic foods to eat, what would those be? Sometimes I buy organic, sometimes non-organic from different reasons. And obviously, I'm trying to find out from which foods I get the most benefits by choosing organic versus non-organic. Or are there any foods that we should never or almost never compromise? Thank you.
Hi again, Marius from Romania. Thank you for your question. As so often happens, I just so happen to be discussing this very same topic with my students. I proceeded to scare them by mentioning a concept known as the circle of poison. Don't worry, I'll be sure to mention this here and scare you as well. But before I get to that, I have to discuss a bit of background. Buckle your seatbelt. Here we go. One of the concerns with consuming produce that is grown conventionally, meaning not organically, is exposure to pesticides. There have been associations between long-term pesticide exposure and certain diseases, like cancer. So, most health agencies recommend that we should limit our exposure to certain pesticides. In the U.S., the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture are responsible for approving and regulating pesticides. The Environmental Protection Agency is tasked specifically with approving the safety of pesticides and determining how much exposure is considered safe. This agency has banned the use of pesticides after they were determined to be harmful to our health or the environment, so that has happened before. If a pesticide is approved for use, the Food and Drug Administration and the U.S. Department of Agriculture take it from there and are responsible for making sure that these guidelines are being followed by produce and livestock growers. Sadly, this process isn't always followed. There are many reasons why this happens, so I won't go into detail about all that here. Needless to say, without very strict regulation and enforcement, potentially harmful chemicals or higher than approved levels of these chemicals can become a problem. According to a study conducted at the University of Washington, those that consumed mostly organic produce had lower levels of pesticide residues in their urine. Now, this is a way to help determine pesticide exposure. So, it is possible that consuming organic foods, produce in particular, may help reduce exposure to pesticides. Every year, a third-party organization called the Environmental Working Group creates their list of 12 produce items that contain the highest levels of pesticide residues. They affectionately call this the Dirty Dozen. Now, I must mention that what I'm sharing is specific to the United States. Each country has their own set of standards. In Europe, for example, many of the pesticides that are approved in the U.S. are banned there. Here's what's particularly scary, though, for U.S. citizens. There are companies that still manufacture chemicals that are banned for use on U.S. soil. You may be thinking, fine, that's not so scary. Well, that's because that's not the scary part. These U.S.-produced chemicals are sold and shipped to other countries for use on their farms, where they grow produce and livestock. We then purchase these very same foods that are being grown on these farms in other countries where they're using the banned chemicals we sold them. So they're importing these foods that are using these banned pesticides back into the U.S. From there, they end up on our grocery store shelves for our consumption. This is what's known as the circle of poison. Fun, no? Marius, you specifically asked which 5 foods I would recommend you buy organic, but something we need to consider is how frequently these foods are consumed and in what quantities. For example, Kale is found on this list that I'm about to read to you, meaning it typically contains lots of pesticide residues. So, if you eat kale fairly regularly and year-round, then I would suggest you purchase organically grown kale. If, on the other hand, you hardly ever eat kale, then it may not be a big deal to purchase a variety that's conventionally grown. So as I read this list of the Dirty Dozen, think about those foods that you consume quite often, and then consider switching to purchasing a certified organic version if you can. Without further ado, here is the Environmental Working Group's list of foods for 2019 with the highest pesticide residues: strawberries, spinach, kale, nectarines, apples, grapes, peaches, cherries, pears, tomatoes, celery, and potatoes. So again, these are the foods you'd probably want to consider purchasing with that certified organic seal of approval. Which ones specifically? Well, again, it depends on how much and how often you consume those foods I just mentioned. Luckily, the Environmental Working Group also publishes what they call the Clean 15. These are foods that contain the fewest amounts of pesticide residues. These include avocado, sweet corn, pineapple, frozen sweet peas, onion, papaya, eggplant, asparagus, kiwi, cabbage, cauliflower, cantaloupe, broccoli, mushrooms, and honeydew melon. Now, as I listed those, you may have noticed that many of these Clean 15 are foods that have thick peels or peels that are not edible. Usually, if you want to save some money and still lower your risk of pesticide exposure, you can purchase conventionally grown foods with inedible or really thick peels. Now, these lists only include fruits and vegetables, no animal products. What we know is that as we move up the biological chain from fruits and vegetables to animal products, the potential for pesticide exposure increases. This is due to something called biomagnification. So, as often as possible, whenever I purchase animal products like meat, poultry, eggs, or dairy, I buy organic to help reduce my exposure. Thank you again for the question, Marius. You'll be entered into a very small raffle every month to win a book. And if you want to be in the raffle, send me a question. Just come by oldpodcast.com/ask. It's really easy, and you can even play back your message and do retakes before sending it in. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and call in your question. The number is 61 I love OHD. Both methods are in this episode's description, which you can find at oldpodcast.com. All right, I can't believe it. That's 730 episodes of Optimal Health Daily, and it's all thanks to you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for sharing this show with someone. Have a wonderful weekend, and I think I'm finally going to get to see Avengers Endgame, and I'll see you back here on Monday where your optimal life awaits.